1, 2. Okay. What if clean code is a scam? Sounds radical, right? It's actually only the first sentence of the abstract of my presentation, but it's not the most important part of it. So let me add some colors to show you what I want to focus on. So the talk is about exploring the subject that I feel that we tend to follow charismatic leaders, and we have some rules that we take for granted instead of asking questions. And the questions like, clean code is a scam, but not only this one, like, will something really improve my code? Did I check it, and does it work for me? Maybe DHH was right, but then again, he was also a charismatic leader. So this abstract, and especially like the first and last sentence, was supposed to catch your attention. And it caught the attention on Twitter. So couple of days ago, I've seen this tweet of somebody quoting my abstract and telling that. I usually tend to avoid conflicts and wanted to discuss what is happening. So, but I like that reaction. It was exactly something that I wanted to achieve. And I honestly thought that this person would like the talk, but the person responded, "Thanks, but no thanks. I can do without opinions of someone who thinks DHH is charismatic." Okay, that's a bit unfair, but wait, what? DHH is not charismatic? I was quite dumbfounded because, I'm not a native speaker of English, so I actually needed to check it twice. Maybe charisma is something else in English than in Polish. But no, charisma, a rare personal quality attributed to leaders who arouse fervent popular devotion and enthusiasm. Sounds like DHH? Pretty much. The other, a special personal quality of power of an individual making him capable of influencing and inspiring a large number of people. Well, if that's not DHH, then I don't know. But, oh yeah. So, I'm not mad about that. I didn't want to bring that discussion just to make fun of that person, because I know that actually the context matters, and the person was most likely upset about something else, and my abstract was just a low-hanging fruit that you can make fun of it. But I thought this kind of conversation actually fits my talk really well, because what this person did was the person did not ask any question, like did not think about that maybe there is something else. Maybe the abstract is just a link bait and something that I wanted to show to people to be radical, but maybe there is something else. But the person didn't do that. And that's fine. You don't need to, but I do like to ask questions, and I want to advertise this stance. So when we talk about DHH, there is one, you can describe DHH by multiple different words, but there is one that I like the most, and does anyone have an idea? Yeah, probably you've seen the slide before. Yeah, so I would say DHH is opinionated. Like the Rails framework he created is also opinionated, and that's why we like it. So being opinionated has pros because it's the way of getting shit done. Basically, you don't stop to ask questions. You just form an opinion on some subject, and then you keep it until the end of the world. So, for example, DHH has different opinions, like here. And if you have strong opinions, somebody can call it out. So here, DHH is talking that it's a spammy behavior that U2 was on every iPhone. And the manager defended that with argument, if you don't like it, delete it. And then somebody called DHH that he used the same argument for CoffeeScript, right? So, yeah, you need to be prepared to fight for your opinions. But this response also showed me that even DHH has boundaries. So that's cool. I personally don't really like being opinionated. I kind of like being opposite. I like being doubtful, and that's me. So if I would describe myself in terms of Dungeons and Dragons alignment, I would be probably neutral good or chaotic good. I want to surround myself with a diversity of different opinions. I want to surround myself with different ideas, challenge myself, go out of the comfort zone. And I feel that people who are strongly opinionated are suspicious. So, I had a privilege to work at video game industry before, and right now I'm working for, several years on Rails and stuff around it. I work at Gunpowder Labs, and yes, we do clean code, so it's, yeah. So I'm not opposing the ways of Uncle Bob, at least not all of them. But I also do like to dig deep into low-level stuff. So I like the previous talk when Thorsten said about that learning C taught him a lot about being a better developer, and that's basically what I feel. So, for example, recently I rediscovered Commodore 64, and I'll be even launching Commodore 64 screencast soon, but that's a different talk. Well, anyway, I just want to advertise my default stance, which is doubtful, and you can describe it using this image. And in the same way as being opinionated, you need to have some boundaries because, well, you can question everything, like literally everything, and that's not constructive. So regardless if you are doubtful or opinionated, you need to be wise. And what does it mean? Well, Reginald Braithwaite, he was a speaker here like I think 2 years ago, and I think he captured the wisdom in terms of my talk perfectly in this tweet. So wisdom is figuring out which old successes are now cargo-cooled legacies and which old failures are now brilliant disruptions. So maybe clean code is a cargo-cooled legacy, and maybe Railsway it's a new brilliant disruption. Well, not really new, but maybe it's a disrupting again. So I think half a year ago I met Uncle Bob here in Wrocław. I'm not sure if it was half a year ago. I'm bad at dates. But he was here with his talk, Lost Years of Architecture. And it was a great talk. I like Uncle Bob. I like him being this charismatic persona. And I do agree with a lot of things that he advertises. But there was one thing that struck me during that time. There was the time at the end of the talk when people start asking questions, and there was one guy, a young developer, who asked question, what should I do? My boss is telling me, deliver this feature fast, but I want to be a good developer and make it in a clean way. So, can you imagine what was the response of Uncle Bob? Yeah, so basically, he didn't actually respond to that question. Instead, he created a metaphor. He compared the feature to a disease, a programmer to a doctor, and basically the story was like that, was something around that. So terminally ill patient comes to the doctor. Doctor can save his life using some kind of operation, like doing some kind of operation. And the guy is starting questioning the doctor. But doctor, maybe you shouldn't cut my stomach. Maybe you can start the operation somewhere here because like I don't want bruises all over my body. And so basically from that point of view, the argument is, the question is ridiculous because it's obvious. You want to save your life, you don't question your doctor, and basically my impression was that almost everybody at the audience accepted that as an argument. But it didn't, well, I didn't like it really much because you can take the other, take the metaphor and tell a different story. For example, I go to a doctor and I have sore throat, and doctor said, well, I need to operate your stomach. That will be $2,000 or $10,000. And I think I should question that decision, for example. Or maybe not that much, but maybe I have a sore throat, but doctor want to prescribe an antibiotic by looking at me and not looking at my throat. Well, if you take a metaphor like that, it's not really that obvious. But what struck me was that people didn't ask the question. Well, I didn't ask any question. I didn't challenge this metaphor when I was there. And I also kind of accepted that. And what I want to talk, what I want to show in this talk and what I want to advertise is to stop when you find yourself accepting some argument because of some kind of authority, to stop, dig deeper, and try to figure out some logical conclusion or some proper arguments for that. And I want to show you a couple of conversations, tweets from people who you might not be exposed to. So I follow a lot of people from game development industry, and they have usually quite a lot of different opinions than we have. So for example, coding style. There was one time when I saw this tweet by Andrzej Krzywda. He's one of the organizers here. And yeah, he had this radical opinion that if a method doesn't fit into a tweet, then it's too long. Well, is that opinion radical? Would you agree with that? Okay, half of you would agree with that. Cool, it's not that radical. Like in Ruby, we tend to prefer smaller methods. We tend to have a lot of small methods and a lot of files and a lot of classes, and we like that. But then again, I saw, by coincidence, I saw this tweet right after that one. So Jonathan Blow is an independent game developer and designer. He created a successful independent game called Braid. And yeah, he's a very skilled developer. He works mostly with C++, and this is his opinion on the size of code. It's pretty different. For my own personal C++ style, the medium-sized file is like 2,000 lines. I feel it's big and with 5,000 lines. Yeah, and it's not on this tweet, but I dug deeper, and I found out that his style of coding is a bit different, and a lot of game developers has similar style of coding in C++. They prefer flat structure, so they tend not to use so many methods because the code then is easier to follow for them, because they can easily follow the sequence, and jumping around different files, in direction caused by method and jumping around different files is something that they tend to stay away from. And then there is an argument about efficiency, and game developers tend to value efficiency a lot more than us, like the raw efficiency. So yeah, I was a bit confused. Who should I follow? Yeah, so basically it doesn't matter what was my answer to that. My point is, like, when you find an opinion like that and you find the other, you should ask question, and you should like really dig deeper and try to find the reason why people have opinions like that. So this is John Carmack. He's a creator of Doom, Quake, and right now Facebook employee working on a virtual reality headsets. Objects is way too large when I start wishing I had a fine dialog in Quick Watch debugger window. That also tells us something about the size of the code. And yeah, here is the tweet that shows us something that tells us that they also have limits, but what they are. This is the limit for John Carmack. So if the file has 10,000 lines of code, then it's probably too big. Well, but talking about the style of code is not the only thing we can do, and not the best thing we can do. Handmade Hero, made by Casey Muratori, also a game developer and creator of middleware for other game developers. He started a project of developing game from scratch without an engine, without any libraries in C or C++ on stream. Like 100% of this game will be created via streaming on Twitch. Basically, 5 days a week, he codes for 1 hour every day and develops like part of the game. You can you can pre-order the game and get the source code, and I can tell you that it's more addictive to me than House of Cards. Like, I really like to watch this guy programming a game. It's awesome. They not only have, like, game developers don't only have radical opinions. Sometimes you can find a gem like that. Have you thought about naming singletons by adding a prefix of "the"? It's genius.
It's wrong to have singletons.
Yeah, it's wrong to have singletons, but yeah. They do have them in games. We don't, I hope. Yeah, so here's a couple of links that I will be posting the slide deck after the presentation. And ideally, if you find that interesting a bit, I would like you to click on those links and try to explore those subjects in the detail. So this is like the first two describe this flat style of programming. Really, so first one is an article, the other is a presentation. I really recommend that one because it focuses on a different metric than we used to think about programming. So Jonathan Blow created a Braid, the game, in like 5 years, and basically he optimized his way of programming for years of life, basically. So he invented his own like the way of programming just to be able to finish as many games as possible in his life. So it's pretty interesting. And another interesting thing is that game developers tend to favor functional programming. And that might be surprising because they do like low-level C stuff. But yeah, John Carmack is a huge proponent of functional programming. And if he was able to, he would program in Haskell. Yeah, true story. Okay, refactoring. I saw this tweet some time ago. So Martin Fowler, for some reason, decided he needed to like hammer this point down that refactoring is a specific way to change code by a series of tiny behavior-preserving transformations, and it's not just moving code around. Somebody pointed that he should write a book about that. Oh wait, he did. Yeah. So in the book, he described an algorithmic way of basically moving code around in a way that doesn't break your code, or at least minimize the chance of breaking your code. But there is another approach. Because like some of the refactorings are pretty complicated, like we extract methods, that's pretty simple, but in different languages can be complicated. But extracting classes or moving code around in some different ways can be actually pretty complicated. And Jonathan Blow, apart from working on his new game, he's right now designing a language which is supposed to be a low level, and he took a different direction than what we would expect of modern languages. He's basically frustrated with a direction that people go when designing new languages. So the language is supposed to be low level, like C, but it stacks upon abstractions that allows to create a higher level concept without sacrificing the speed. And one of the things that he focused on at first was to make the refactoring of some specific refactorings, the ones that he does pretty much all the time in his code base, really simple. So this is interesting approach. Instead of like working around existing languages, you can probably devise a language that make the refactorings trivial. That's interesting. Yeah, and then there is another opinion like that DHH stated. So if you remember an article from Joel Spolsky, the big rewrite is the worst thing you can do to your project. You will fail and, well, people will die. And DHH has the other opinion that big rewrite can actually work. And maybe like when I hear DHH has an opinion, I usually want to dismiss it right away, but that's a signal to me not to do that like immediately and try to read an article and try to understand it. And yeah, that's basically what I would like you to do. And this opinion, like about rewriting, it's sometimes can be prevalent in game developers as well. A large fraction of software problems can be solved by just trying again. That's true. Yeah, and here's an interesting opinion about like the boundaries of taking the dry principle to the extreme. Like if you have two unrelated projects and they use the same code base, maybe that's not a good idea. And also, like we are usually focused on reusing code, but here is another opinion that sometimes re-editable code is much, much better than reusable. And actually, reusable code can be mostly a menace. So do you know whose this opinion is? Donald Knuth. So this is kind of a radical opinion. And you can say that, well, he can have opinions like that because he mostly works alone. But on the other hand, have we ever tried to basically copy, paste, adapt, and like try to do it into, try to like transform it from the worst possible programming way to the kind of acceptable one? We probably didn't. And maybe we should. So here are a couple of links. So the article about not rewriting things, the big rewrite by DHH. Jonathan Blow on YouTube has a series of talks about his new language. The language is basically working. He developed already a prototype of a simple game in that, and he constantly works on it, but it is not yet released. He plans to release it like when it's ready. And yeah, well, since we talked about Donald Knuth, how many of you heard about literate programming? Have you tried it? Yeah, I haven't tried it as well, but it's something that I think might be interesting. Okay, object-oriented programming. So, if you would to guess, what do you think game developers think about object-oriented programming?
It's a crap.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, not every one of them. I work for a game company who was, well, the company was basically working in C++. They had they used test-driven development at the beginning of the project, but it was they used Scrum and some different agile processes, and it worked quite well. So yeah, it's not like every game developer has one opinion, but it's pretty diverse community. But yeah. The most common argument is that like the really good, well-designed, object-oriented code is inefficient, and basically, if you want to parse like 1 and 6 gigabyte XML file, then you might have a bad time if you have like really well-designed object-oriented code. Well, that's an opinion. Here's a funny opinion that OP programmers love interaction so much they went ahead and made an acronym of the acronyms, and I looked it up, and yeah, Solid is actually an acronym of acronyms. That's quite funny. So and this is again like you can see the dislike to indirection. So yeah, that's the default flat coding style of some of the game programmers. Also, Casey Muratori, the guy from the previous tweet and the guy behind the Handmade Hero project, has written an interesting article about compression-oriented development. Basically, it's like you take a procedural programming, but then try to compress the code whenever it repeats itself, but you don't do it dumbly. You don't you need to think. You have to do it smart. So it's not like you don't zip your code, but you think about semantic ideas and try to like compress them. And results, surprisingly, for me, look like a well-designed object-oriented code. And that's pretty interesting thing, because the guy is pretty much opposes OOP, but the end result is pretty similar. And you can actually see see how he does that in Handmade Hero project. The other thing that we might not be aware is the paradigm of data-oriented design, which is some people suggest it's a better way of writing games than object-oriented development. But yeah, it's another idea, probably interesting to check. And also, we don't need to look far. So if you know Gary Bernhardt, you probably think about him like this guy is test-driven development constantly. He loves object-oriented code and stuff, but apparently his love to object-oriented code faded away. This is kind of the interesting thing for me because this is the argument to stop following charismatic leaders in a way. But on the other hand, it's kind of ironic because he basically did the same thing. And it's kind of ironic because I'm standing here and doing basically the same thing, but I'm not that charismatic like DHH at least. So there is still hope for me. Okay, so there are a couple of links about OP. So basically search Gary Bernhardt OP on Twitter. It gets ridiculous. But there is an interesting article that was quoted like 2 tweets before. OP is an expensive disaster which must end. And yes, that's a radical opinion, but there are some interesting points there. There is this compression-oriented programming by Casey Muratori, data-oriented design article, then data-oriented design talk. And another interesting article by Casey Muratori when he talks about different way of designing graphical user interfaces without using object-oriented code. Basically, it's called immediate mode GUI, immediate mode graphical user interface, and it's pretty interesting. TDD. Okay, yeah, some game developers do use TDD, but the most prevalent opinion is that TDD does not scale and games get big and complicated. And yeah, there are some misguided opinions. I think they are misguided. I don't think that keep changing the code until it works is a fair description of test-driven development. Sorry. But the truth is that most game developers didn't do enough TDD code to make really informed opinion. But I could probably agree, but there are parts of the code in games that are not really easy to test. And if you dig deeper and like get rid of the rubbish opinions and rubbish arguments, you can find some pretty good gems that will make you think twice about testing too much. But on the other hand, like game developers use a lot of assertions in code. If you program in C, assertion is basically like a unit test. You add an invariant at the beginning of or at the end of the function, and it will blow up in your face if there is an error in the program, and you can compile it out when you actually release the project. So they don't do test-driven development. They don't do unit tests so much, but they use plenty of assertions in the code because they are fast and they kind of work. And when it comes to TDD, we don't need to look far. There was another pretty radical article about made by DHH that testing basically is dead, and test can lead you to needless complexity, indirection, and abstraction, and so on, so on. And yeah, basically, if you that was pretty loud like 1 year ago, but if you did not keep attention, there were pretty good discussion around the subject. So I invite you to look up those links and see for yourself. Version control. So how many of you use Git? Pretty much everyone. SVN? Okay. How many of you used SVM in the past? Okay. Almost like half of you. Okay, so imagine the situation. You see this tweet. There is Jonathan Blow, the game developer, and he has a problem. Does anyone know why SVN delete is so slow? It is becoming our #1 workflow problem. What would you answer to him? Use Git, right? Please do not reply telling me to switch to Mercurial or Git. Thank you. Basically, whenever this guy posts about SVN, he gets thousands and thousands of people telling him to switch to Git. And believe me, this guy researched the subject quite well. Basically, he uses Git to, he uses source control to not only, version control, to not only hold the versions of source, he also uses the version control to hold all the assets for the game. And this way, every artist working on that game can work remotely and work on exactly the same version of the application. And basically, the assets in game development can get pretty huge. So you can have 50 gigabytes of stuff in your version control, and you cannot possibly do that in Git. And this guy, believe me, he checked it. And so why I'm showing this? Because usually when we are familiar with something, we get emotionally attached. Like this guy. So he gets kind of passive-aggressive about getting Git. So, oh yeah, so for project without many binary assets, you don't have any more major qualms. Got it. Thanks for responding. Bye. And yeah, so we tend to get emotionally attached to things that we use. And if somebody has different opinion, we will disagree, and we can sometimes forcefully disagree with them. And instead of just stopping for a moment and maybe asking questions, or learning more about the subject, or just looking at the past history on Twitter and seeing the thousands of similar suggestions, and simply refrain for suggesting it. So, yeah, basically that's kind of funny, because he's really fed up with people suggesting him Git. And he needed to come up with a derogatory term for all the people who said switch to Git every time I make an SVN post. And the ironic thing is that a Git is a pretty good word for that. So Git, a completely ignorant, childish person with no manners. A person who feels justified in their callow behavior, and so on, so on. So it's kind of funny. So yeah, so if you want to if you want to amuse yourself, just search Twitter for Jonathan Blow Git, and read an interesting article how he uses SVN in Witness. It's pretty nice. And there is also an article about abandoning your distributed version control systems that has pretty good arguments against them. And basically, I could stand here all day and talk about different opinions of game developers, because don't get me started on garbage collectors, or just try to search Twitter for Jonathan Blow garbage collector or John Carmack garbage collector and so on. That will be awesome. So they have some pretty different opinions, and that's my point. We should, maybe should is, I don't like being opinionated. I don't like hard stances. We could. I invite you to look for different opinions and reach to different places and inform yourself. And this doubtful stance is not only useful, in my opinion, in technical terms. Let's talk about something that sometimes makes people rage. Let's talk about diversity. Warning, simplification ahead. So you might not know about that, but there was some kind of slight misunderstanding on Twitter around Wrocław conference. And I'm sure all sides in the argument were basically talking about similar things. And beware of simplifications. I want to talk about it for a while. So basically, I think different people have a different focus when they talk about diversity. And some people focus on accessibility, and regardless of culture, gender, skin color. Some other people, or maybe not people, but there is a different focus on the freedom to express extreme, contrarian, confrontational ideas. And some people believe that those aspects are opposites. Some people believe that those aspects exist in parallel. The others believe that one cannot be achieved without other. And there are some stances some of the people focus on one and neglect the other aspect. And some of the people focus on one and fight actively the other one. And I don't really want to take a stance here. And I don't want you to jump to conclusions, because we have some worldviews and things that we are, if we are familiar with some idea, we might we might not want to challenge ourselves with accepting some other ideas. But in the same way that I gave you links to things to read about opinions of game developers, you might want to dig deeper into the subject of diversity and read something about feminism, read something about code of conducts. Maybe talk with Wrocław organizers, maybe talk with those who opposed Wrocław RB. Don't be afraid to state your opinion, but don't be afraid to change your opinion. And there is one more thing. But before I get to that one, I want to ask you a question. Did you find something out of place or something that bothered you in my talk?
Half of it.
Everything, half of it. One specific thing, maybe. Background, okay, not really. Okay, so I was using words like diversity. I was using words like reaching out to other people. And I was focusing on opinions of different developers from outside of our Ruby circle. But have you noticed How many women did I manage to put on the slides?
One.
Not a single one. And now that you are aware of that, does it bother you?
No.
Should it bother you? I don't want to answer those questions for you. I have my own opinions. I won't share my own opinions on that subject. But I would, like, if there is a one way I would like to achieve after this talk, is that if you have an opinion about the subject, try to challenge yourself with the opposite one and try to accept it for like 5 minutes and try to like filter out the hate, filter out the other like emotions, and try to see if there is some truth in the opposite opinion. Maybe there is. And getting back to one more thing, I want to leave you with a song. Don't worry, I won't be singing. But there is an artist that I personally like really much. He is actually a Polish rapper, and the song is in Polish, but I prepared subtitles so you can follow it, hopefully. And I feel that it describes pretty well the point I wanted to make.
Od niedawna stoisz w tym tłumie, który wie i rozumie, jak strumień tych sumień zmienić i umiesz. Całe zło blokując w czasie przeszłym. Ty stoisz tu i krzyczysz głośniej od reszty. I to jest, muszę przyznać, nowszy trend, bo wczoraj stałeś obok tłumie, widząc owczy pęd. A dziś zdrowszy ten, to gotów dostrzec tych wszystkich, którzy tak pięknie mówią, że to prostsze niż myślisz. Jeden stoi z przodu i gniewem płonie, więc ty spijasz słowa z jego ust i chłoniesz. On ma modny krawat, pasuje jak umał. Problem w tym, że pod krawatem jest brunatna koszula. A ty w tym tłumie ufającym bezdennie, choć fakt wyglądacie znacznie lepiej ode mnie. Czoła wprawdzie niskie, ale gładkie dość, bo dotychczas raczej nieskażone wątpliwości. Jasne myśli, głos jasnych twarzy można czytać. Same pewne odpowiedzi, żadnych pytań. Rozmawiacie tak pięknie, jakby to sen był. A wszystko co błyszczy w tych rozmowach to te niemożliwie białe zęby. Kiedy tak stoisz w tym tłumie beztroskim, na który cień rzuca choćby cień wątpliwości. W tym kartelu myśli chorych na pewność. Przyjacielu, bądź tak dobry i zrób dla mnie jedno. Kiedy wszyscy wokół ciebie równiuteńko idą. Przyjacielu, ty bądź uprzejmy mieć wątpliwość. I kiedy bronisz prawdy, mając ją za jedynie prawdziwą, ty bądź uprzejmy mieć wątpliwość. Ty już wierzysz, że twoja perspektywa jest jedyną perspektywą. Ty bądź uprzejmy mieć wątpliwość. Zanim uznasz tych, co mają ją za zbędne obliwo. Przyjacielu, ty bądź uprzejmy mieć wątpliwość. A ty słuchasz i zanim skończę już przeczysz, bo w tym, co mówię, widzisz tylko nóż w plecy. W ogóle słyszeć nie jest dane mi nic już, bo strasznie bełkoczysz przez te kane na pysku. Wierz mi, trudno o zaufanie, gdy tak pięknie bezgrzecznie chwytają za kamień. I ten żółty buldożer, którego jeszcze wczoraj mogłem tak chwalić, rozsądek zmienił na dobry fundamentalizm. Widzisz świat doskonale, nikt ci nie mówi, że czarne jest czarne, a białe jest białe. Bo rozróżnianie barw jest jedną z zalet licznych, gdy świat, który widzisz, jest monochromatyczny. Patrzysz w lustro i nie masz problemów, żeby usnąć, skoro usypia cię słuszność. Tylko nie sposób zjechać z tych słusznych torów, kiedy ponoć wyboru już oddałeś w ręce uzurpatorów. Mówisz, że cenisz prawdę? Owszem, zwłaszcza gdy brzmi w stylu gardeł jednogłośnie. I masz jasność, i masz pewność, i masz spokój. I tego ostatniego nawet ci zazdroszczę. Widzisz, u mnie spokój jest rzadszy, bo do dziś nie dałem pod topór do racy. I póki co jest wciąż we mnie ta fraza, która na szczęście co jakiś czas mi powtarza. Kiedy wszyscy oprócz ciebie równiuteńko idą. Przyjacielu, ty bądź uprzejmy mieć wątpliwość. Kiedy kpisz z prawdy, którą ktoś uważa za jedynie prawdziwą. Ty bądź uprzejmy mieć wątpliwość. Gdy nie wierzysz, że twoja perspektywa jest jakąkolwiek perspektywą. ty bądź uprzejmy, mieć wątpliwość. Inni uznasz tych, co nie mają jej za zbędne ogniwo. Przyjacielu, ty bądź uprzejmy, mieć wątpliwość.
That's it.